story. Real talk, from health and wellness to career and relationship, we explore it all. Meet your host, the Radio Gem, and other women on Women Corner every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m., where sisterhood meets support. It promises to elevate your mind, and most importantly, it's gonna be fun. Follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X, all at Radio Afinju. Keep a date with us on Women Corner every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m.
on Radio Afinju.
When heavy rain begin fall and plenty water full everywhere, dey alert, my people. Shine your eyes as e dey happen for other places. If you reach your side,
má ṣe da ìdọ̀tí sójú àgbàrá, gbé ilẹ̀ rẹ fún àwọn ọkọ̀ akólẹ̀.
no go put yourself for danger dey waka for flooded roads.
Gbọ́ o, ǹjẹ́ tó bá rí ẹnikẹ́ni tó hùwà tó lòdì sí òfin àmójútó ìdọ̀tí àti ẹ̀gbin, ẹ fi tó àwọn aláṣẹ létí. Report to the nearest authorities.
Má ṣe da ìdọ̀tí sójú àgbàrá.
Ìlera lọ́rọ̀. This awareness is brought to you by Radio Afinju. Wherever you're listening or watching Radio Afinju, the time is 3 p.m.
First, a look at the highlights. Federal government inaugurates task force on EU deforestation regulation. Kenya's parliament to vote on impeaching Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. AI scientists win 2024 Nobel Prize in Physics. Good afternoon. Here is the world news on Radio Afinju. My name is Pearl Durotoye. News in detail. The federal government has inaugurated the National Task Force on the European Union Deforestation Regulation. The Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, disclosed this at a press briefing in Abuja today. He said the inauguration of the NTF is a pivotal step in aligning Nigeria's agricultural practices with international standards, ensuring the continued access of Nigerian products to the lucrative EU market. The minister emphasized the urgency of the task ahead, stating that the deforestation regulation by EU entered into force on 29th June 2023 and was given an 18-month implementation period of December 2024. He further highlighted the severe implications of non-compliance, noting that the loss of the market due to non-compliance with EUDR presents a great threat to the cocoa, rubber, soya, and timber value chains that constitute 80%, 7%, 7% and 5% respectively of the €523 million export trade. Kerry underscored the collective efforts required to meet the EUDR standards. He called for unity among all stakeholders, including government and private sector operators, to achieve the set targets. The minister also pointed out the necessity of updating Nigeria's forest mapping and establishing a national traceability system across agricultural value chains. The Nigerian Communications Commission has withdrawn its recently issued press statement regarding the operations of satellite internet service provider Starlink. In a brief message signed by the NCC's Manager of Media Relations, Kunle Aziz, and addressed to media outlets today, the NCC acknowledged that the statement was released in error, urging editors and journalists to retract any related publications. The Commission's Director of Public Affairs, Ruben Moka, has announced plans to take enforcement measures against Starlink for raising its subscription prices in Nigeria without the regulator's approval. In a message sent to its customers last week, Starlink said the price hike would affect both existing and new customers. The monthly subscription fee was increased by 97% from 38,000 naira to 75,000 naira. Additionally, new users will face a higher cost for the Starlink kit, which is now priced at 590,000 naira, up to 34% from the previous price of 440,000 naira. However, the NCC stated that it had not approved the price increase. He explained that the Commission was surprised when the company announced the price changes, despite having filed a request with the NCC for a price adjustment, which the regulator had yet to approve. A federal high court in Abuja today returned Julius Abure as the national chairman of the Labour Party, LP. The court declared the 2024 Labour Party National Convention held in Nnewi, which re-elected Abure, is valid, stating that the convention was aligned with all the laid-down laws in Nigeria. This was contained in a statement issued today by the party's National Publicity Secretary, Obiora Ifo. According to the statement, Justice Emeka Nwite, while delivering the judgment, compelled the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to grant due recognition and all privileges to the Labour Party's National Working Committee, as led by Abure. Reports say that INEC had announced that it did not recognize Abure as the national chairman of the Labour Party. The commission argued that the Abure-led LP leadership was invalid, stating that the March 2024 National Convention that re-elected Abure as chairman violated both the Nigerian Constitution and the Electoral Act. Former Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Timi Frank, has accused the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, and Federal Capital Territory Minister, Nyesom Wike, of complicity in the recent burning of 2 local council secretariats in Rivers State. In a statement issued in Abuja today, Frank conveyed his condolences to Governor Siminalayi Fubara and the people of Rivers State over the unfortunate incident. Frank condemned the attacks, asserting that the IGP and Wike should resign and be held accountable for the violence. He claimed that immediately the IGP ordered the withdrawal of policemen from the council secretariat, hoodlums descended on the facilities. Frank praised President Bola Tinubu's directive for police intervention, but criticized the response as coming too late and biased in favor of Wike, who he alleges has threatened to destabilize the state. Frank urged all patriotic Nigerians, including former leaders and union heads, to rally against the violence and demand justice for those responsible for the attacks. He also called on the United Nations to intervene, insisting that the perpetrators of the violence must be brought to justice. A chieftain of the All Progressive Congress, APC, Alhaji Saleh Zazaga, has formally written to the national chairman of the party, Abdullahi Ganduje, asking him to resign within 7 days. Zazaga, who is the chairman of North Central APC Forum and also served as a member stakeholder relations of Tinubu Shetima Presidential Campaign Council, addressed newsmen today in Jos, Plateau State. He explained that the letter explicitly outlined the reason he's asking Ganduje to resign and that the 7 days ultimatum expires next week Monday, upon which he will take legal action if necessary. He revealed that the National Convention of the party held on the 26th March 2022, the national chairmanship of the party was zoned to the North Central Geopolitical Zone, whereas Ganduje is from the Northwest region. The party chieftain pointed out that Ganduji's occupation of the position is in violation of Article 31.5I and IV of the APC Constitution 2022 as amended, and also contrary to the ratified zoning arrangement of the party, which zones the national chairmanship position to the North Central and particularly to Nasarawa State. He said the letter will be on record that he has applied diverse means to resolve the matter amicably and had used several internal crisis resolving mechanisms and communications, but Ganduje is hell-bent on occupying the position which is constitutionally for the North Central. Zazaga copied President Bola Tinubu, Senate President Senator Godswill Akpabio, Speaker House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas, the National Working Committee of the APC, and the National Advisory Council of the APC. The Katsina State Police Command has thwarted 3 separate kidnapping attempts by suspected armed bandits in Dammusa and Faskari local government areas, rescuing 8 victims unharmed. The police public relations officer, Abubakar Sadiq, in a statement revealed that the incidents occurred on October 7, 2024. Sadiq further disclosed that later in the day at about 2:30 p.m., another group of bandits blocked the Ungawa-Kafa junction along the Yankara-Faskari road, abducting 2 women and their children. He said upon receiving the reports, police operatives swiftly mobilized to the scene, engaging the assailants in gunfire. The bandits were forced to flee, leaving behind the kidnapped victims who were all rescued unhurt. The attackers, Sadiq added, escaped with gunshot wounds. Commending the officers for their bravery, the Commissioner of Police reiterated the command's commitment to tackling crime and ensuring the safety of residents in the state. Elsewhere, Kenyan members of parliament are due to vote on impeaching Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua for alleged corruption and undermining the government, among others. Gachagua has rejected the allegations and is expected to defend himself in parliament this afternoon. Lawmakers launched the impeachment process on October 1 with 291 MPs signing up to the motion, well beyond the 117 minimum required. If the lower house, the National Assembly, votes by more than 2/3 to impeach, the upper house, the Senate, will be asked to oppose the motion by the same margin. The MPs have listed 11 grounds for impeachment, but prosecutors have not formally charged Gachagua and no judicial inquiry has been opened against him. Gachagua backed President William Ruto in his 2022 election win and helped secure a large block of votes from the populous Mount Kenya region. The deputy president says he has since been sidelined amid widespread reports in local media that he has fallen out with Ruto as political alliances have shifted. If impeached, it would become the first deputy president to be removed in this way since the possibility was introduced in Kenya's revised 2010 constitution. In other parts of Africa, in an election that was criticized by rights group, the Electoral Commission of Tunisia has said Tunisia's President Kais Saied has won a second term with more than 90% of the vote. Only 2 candidates out of more than a dozen other hopefuls were allowed to stand against President Saied in Sunday's ballot, where only 29% of the more than 9 million registered voters took part. Said's closest challenger, businessman Ayachi Zamel, won 7% of the vote despite being sentenced to 12 years in prison for falsifying documents just 5 days before the poll. There were no campaign rallies or public debates, and nearly all the campaign posters in the streets were backing the president. 5 political parties had urged people to boycott the elections in the belief that they would not be free or fair. But since Saied, a former law professor, was elected on the wave of optimism in 2019, the 66-year-old has suspended parliament, rewritten the constitution and concentrated power into his hands. He was widely expected to win a second term after the authorities arrested and jailed dissidents as well as potential rivals. The final results of the presidential election are set to be announced early next month, according to the electoral agency. In Asia, China has imposed duties on imports of which would hit German producers hardest and pork and dairy products. French Trade Minister Sophie Primas said the brandy tax seems to be a retaliatory measure after the European Union decision to raise tariffs on Chinese electric cars. She said that kind of retaliation would be unacceptable and a total contradiction of international trade rules, adding that France would work with the European Union to take action at the WTO. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party is leading in the northern state of Haryana, but looks set to fall short in Indian-administered Kashmir as votes are counted in two state elections. An opposition alliance formed by the Congress and Regional Party National Conference is currently ahead in Jammu and Kashmir. These were the first state polls to be held in India since the general election, which returned the BJP to power in June with a reduced majority. A potential win in Haryana would be a big boost for Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party, as it would allow it to form a government for a third straight term. A BJP win would also go completely against exit polls, which had predicted a landslide for the Congress in Haryana. The exit polls has also indicated a hung assembly in Jammu and Kashmir, but if trends hold, the Congress-NC coalition will be in position to form the government. Both states have 90 assembly seats, and a party or coalition that crosses the halfway mark can form the government. This was the first assembly election to be held in Jammu and Kashmir since 2019, when the federal government revoked the region's autonomy and changed it into a federally governed territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Seoul's defense minister Kim Yong-hun said today that North Korea is likely sending its soldiers to fight and die in Ukraine alongside Russian troops. South Korea's defense chief told the country's parliament that as Russia and North Korea had signed a mutual treaty akin to a military alliance, the possibility of such a deployment is highly likely, adding that more of Pyongyang's soldiers are likely to be deployed. Russia and North Korea have deepened their ties following Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, culminating in a defense pact signed between the two countries in June when President Vladimir Putin visited the Asian country for the first time in 25 years. The pact, which represents a sign of the strongest partnership between the two since the Cold War, envisions mutual military assistance between Moscow and Pyongyang if either is attacked. The move added to concerns in the West that North Korea is providing Moscow with munitions to wage its war in Ukraine in exchange for economic assistance and technology transfers. South Korea's defense chief also corroborated Ukrainian media reports that North Korea's soldiers have been killed by Kyiv's troops as they fend off Putin's aggression. Both Russia and Ukraine have used foreign fighters in their ranks as they face shortage of troops. In Europe, Christine Bruckner, the main suspect in the 2007 disappearance of British girl Madeleine McCann, has been acquitted by a German court of unrelated rape and sexual abuse charges. The court ruled there was insufficient evidence for 5 offenses he allegedly committed in Portugal between 2000 and 2017. Bruckner, 47 years, is currently serving a 7-year sentence in Germany for raping an American prisoner. He has not been charged in connection with McCann's case, which remains unsolved. Prosecutors have announced plans to appeal the court's decision. During the trial, Buckner's defense argues that the evidence against him was lacking, and the presiding judge, Uta Engeman, concurred. 2 key alleged victims were never identified, and witnesses were deemed unreliable. Despite his acquittal, prosecutors are seeking to keep Bruckner in preventive detention after his current sentence ends next September. His defense lawyer also intends to challenge the previous rape conviction from 2019. French authorities have ordered Omar bin Laden, a son of slain al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, to leave the country over posts on social media, France's Interior Minister announced today. Born in Saudi Arabia, where he spent his early years, Omar bin Laden, 43 years old, has also lived in Sudan and Afghanistan. He left his father at the age of 19 and eventually settled in Normandy in northern France in 2016, taking up painting. France's new Interior Minister, Bruno Retailleau, said on X that Omar bin Laden has lived in the Department of Honor in Normandy as a spouse of a British national. The minister said that the jihadist's son posted comments on his social networks in 2023 that advocated terrorism. The Interior Minister also said he had signed off on a ban preventing Omar bin Laden to return to France for any reason whatsoever. He did not provide further details, and it was not clear if Omar bin Laden had already left France. The U.S. president has delayed a reception with the Taoiseach Irish Prime Minister in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday due to Hurricane Milton. The storm is expected to reach Florida around the time a reception was scheduled to mark the centenary of diplomatic relations between Ireland and the United States. Joe Biden and Simon Harris are still planning to meet in the Oval Office, but the reception in the Rose Garden has been postponed. A spokesperson for the Taoiseach said that he will proceed with all other parts of his program in Washington. Biden had formally invited the Taoiseach to visit Washington during the UN General Assembly in New York. They confirmed that the Taoiseach will proceed with all other parts of his program in Washington. U.S. officials have warned of the threat to life posed by the hurricane, which briefly became a Category 5 storm before returning to Category 4. Hurricane Milton is gathering ferocious winds of up to 155 meters per hour as it moves past the northern edge of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Forecasters from the National Hurricane Center have said potentially catastrophic storm surges are possible along coastal areas. Floridians have been told to prepare for the state's largest evacuation efforts in years. In the Americas, John Hopfield and Geoffrey Hinton have won the Nobel Prize in Physics 2024 for their pioneering work in the field of machine learning. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences said today the scientists were honored for foundational discoveries and inventions that enable machine learning with artificial neural networks. In particular, Hopfield, whose research is carried out at Princeton University in the United States, was recognized for creating an associative memory that can store and reconstruct images and other types of patterns in data. Meanwhile, Hinton, who works at the University of Toronto, invented a method that can autonomously find properties in data, allowing it to perform tasks such as identifying specific elements in pictures. In the Middle East, Lebanon's prime minister at the time of his last war with Israel in 2006 has told newsmen his country has been abandoned by the international community. Fouad Siniora said it was unacceptable to leave Lebanon to fall, and there was a lack of initiative when it came to trying to restore peace. The last war between Lebanon and Israel nearly 20 years ago began when Hezbollah fighters crossed the border and attacked Israeli soldiers. 2 were kidnapped and 3 were killed, sparking a month-long conflict. In the days that followed, Signora made a public statement distancing the Lebanese government from what had happened. Signora is also clear that the conflict in Lebanon should not be inextricably linked to the current year-old war in Gaza. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has visited regional capitals calling for simultaneous ceasefires in both Lebanon and Gaza. Israeli forces have reported the killing of another senior Hezbollah commander in a strike on the Lebanese capital. The Israeli army said in a statement on X today that Suhail Hussein Hosseini, head of the Hezbollah headquarters, was killed as its fighter jets targeted the Beirut area. Israel has claimed significant success since it began targeting the Lebanese armed group's chain of command last month in a series of attacks that have also killed many civilians. The army said Husseini's death was another significant strike on Hezbollah. He was involved in weapons transfer between Iran and the group and in distributing smuggled weapons among various units in Hezbollah. Husseini was also responsible for the budgeting and logistics of Hezbollah's most sensitive projects, including planning attacks against Israel from Lebanon and Syria. Now talking sports. Former Barcelona midfielder Andres Iniesta, who won 2 European Championships and the 2010 World Cup with an all-conquering Spain team, announced his retirement from football today at the age of 40. A visibly emotional Iniesta told reporters at a news conference in Barcelona that being on the pitch is over. Iniesta came up through Barcelona's famed La Masia Academy and made his first team debut in 2002, aged just 18, becoming a mainstay in the midfield before his departure 16 years later. He won 9 La Liga titles and the Champions League 4 times with Barcelona, but his greatest moment came from the 2010 World Cup final when he scored the winning goal against the Netherlands in extra time. After leaving Barcelona in 2018, Iniesta spent 5 years with Japanese club Vissel Kobe before playing one final season with Emirates of the UAE.